Today, we're going to talk about selective deployments, an exciting new feature inside of Spin 3 and Spin Cube that changes the way that you can build serverless applications and microservices. The basic idea of selective deployments is that as a developer, you can build a single application that's composed of perhaps dozens of different serverless functions written in whatever languages you want, but you can do this with one single tool, Spin. You can build all of these things into one single application using Spin Build. You can test it locally all together in one single process using Spin Up. But then, when it's time to deploy, you can configure it so that certain services run in different locations. So let's talk about this in the context of, say, a digital experiences platform. This is one of the things I built to try this out. So a digital experiences platform is sort of like, it's got a content repository, it's got a bunch of user-facing things, it's got an admin interface. So let's sort of sketch out what our functions would look like, right? So sort of in the middle of this whole thing, you have some kind of content management system, and it's going to have a database. Then you're going to want some front-end stuff, right? So you got a server that's going to serve out your front-end interface. You might have some static files. I wanted to build one that had a little QR code thing that would generate QR codes for items on the site. You might have a template engine to render templates through your HTML, all kinds of interesting things like that. But then on the other side of the equation, we might want an admin interface. And the admin interface would be, where an administrator goes in and creates new content or edits it. You might want an asset control system. I wanted one for PDF files so that I could track the versions of PDF files, but I wasn't necessarily editing the PDF files in line. If you're starting to build a system like that, you're also going to need an authentication system for users and stuff like that. And we could imagine just building more and more serverless functions, each of which was doing its own bit to build this digital content platform until we'd filled up this whole top box, right? Mine in the end, I think, had about 12 different serverless functions, each performing sort of as a microservice. So we build this, we compile it with Spin Build, it compiles the whole thing, I test it locally with Spin Up. Now it's time for me to deliver it. So I package it up with Spin, push it into Docker Hub or GitHub Container Registry or something like that. And then at config time, the platform engineering takes this and says, okay, we don't really want to run the digital experiences platform as a monolith, right? We want to break this down into respective groups of services. So there are plenty of ways you could break something like this down into groups of services, but let's just go this way, right? We got some front end stuff. We got the content management sort of headless CMS system, and we got the admin interface. So let's say we want to take this, build a config for this that's a front-end config, a config for this that's maybe the back-end config, and then a config for this that's the admin config. So now, as a platform engineer, I can take this single packaged up archive and say, when it runs with this config, the FE config, it expresses only the front-end parts of the application that are in this binary. When it's running in the admin mode, it expresses only the administrative interface, and so on, right? So this is a cool way of being able to break it down. I want to point out this is config only that we're changing at this point, right? Not changing anything about the application code, not recompiling, not rebuilding, not even unpacking the binary and taking out bits and pieces. It's all just a config file. So if you're deploying with SpinCube, it's YAML. If you deploy it with the Spin runtime, it's TOML, but essentially the same kind of thing. Okay, so now is where it starts to get cool. We've expressed 3 different ways to run this application, 3 different aspects of this application. Now we want to deploy them. Well, the back end, we might want to go into like our Azure AKS cluster, and we might want to run it inside of Kubernetes and, have something like, 5 replicas of it running there, something like that, right? But the destination for that piece is going to be inside of our cloud, and in part because, if we're using a database for this application, we might want something that's like a managed database that's got very high availability. Now let's go to the admin interface. Do we want to run the admin interface anywhere in particular? Well, we might say, actually, we only want to run it on-prem, right? And we've got a local microK8s cluster or something running there. So we'll want to run that there. We don't want to run that in the cloud because that would introduce security problems. So let's just run it there and have it configure itself to talk back to the backend. Again, this is only configuration that we're changing, right? And then we go to the front end and we say, okay, now this is the interesting case because yes, I definitely want a copy of the front end running in my AKS cluster, but could I push some of that front end out to say the various edge configurations? So like Akamai Gecko nodes or something like that are going to get the front end code much closer to the user, but still have it configure itself to talk back to my AKS cluster as the definitive source for, say, the content management or the authentication pieces and so on. That's the kind of thing that you can do with selective deployments. It allows the developers to build a very unified platform that can be kept in one GitHub repository, can be run through one CI/CD pipeline, can be run under a single pane of glass locally. But at deployment time, it enables platform engineers to break this into the correct array of constituent parts for whatever part of the environment they want to run in. And then it facilitates running in these sort of highly distributed environments that include things like on-prem, cloud, and edge. That's selective deployments. Bye.